So, one of my aubergine, which you may know as eggplant by the way, one of my aubergine seedlings is finally appearing. The others will probably be along shortly actually. The dormancy of seeds tends to be quite consistent. So anyway, one little shoot just peeping up here. It's more garden stuff. So, our second batch of broad beans have been planted in amongst the first lot. That is crowded, but they don't mind. In fact, they'll do well when they grow up together because they kind of support each other a bit. All four of the courgette plants are out now. And that's pretty much all I'm growing in this bed is just 4 courgette plants. Courgettes. We grew like about 8 of them in this bed last year. And it was so crowded I couldn't get in to get the crop. So quality not quantity this year, although I suspect we'll probably have both. Peas are doing well. There's possibly just enough room for one more row here with some more sticks, but we'll see. Pak choy, kohlrabi, just some radish seedlings there, and I'm going to let those go to seed so we can pick the pods. Florence fennel, and this is my chard. So every time one of these germinates in the greenhouse, I just get it out here, harden it off by covering it up every night for a few days, and then letting it grow on. But this is coming along now, starting to develop. Leeks are just doing nothing much. Rhubarb is recovering very nicely. So recovering from being forced, so we covered it with a bin in the spring and forced it in order to get a crop of sweet and tender rhubarb, but this plant is now just recovering now. We won't pick any more. Maybe, well, you might pick 1 or 2 stalks or something later in the year, but this is just going to now recover its strength, get its leaves growing and get itself back into condition. And today I'm planting runner beans. So these are the runner beans that we started off in pots and we've hardened off by bringing them out during the day, and they've been out for a couple of nights now because it's warm enough, and they're going to grow up these poles. Do you like what I've done here? Just to tie the top end of these poles together, I've just used an old glove. So I've just got to get these in now, 2 per cane. So yeah, it is just going to be a case of, the soil is actually quite dry here, but I'll give them a good water in, but just getting those nicely set in without disturbing the roots much. And where possible, I kind of tip them towards the cane so they can find it. They'll do pretty well finding it on their own, but I always like to give them a clue. So plant the thing slightly inclined, because these plants, they sense when they've hit the cane, so they'll twirl around until they tap on something and then they'll wrap around it. Yeah, the soil here is very dry, so these are going to get a good watering in. Well, I'll give them a little bit of water now, then I'll give them a proper water in this evening when it's cooled down. There's not very much point putting a ton of water on here during the hot part of the day, or else we'll just lose it to evaporation. So like I say, just a little watering in at the roots just to settle them down. But I'll come back and give these a proper watering in earnest this evening when it's cooled down. There we go, runner beans planted. I've also got these dwarf French beans, which I think I've got enough space to plant at the top or at the front end of that plot in front of the runner beans. So it's going to be beans, beans, beans in that plot, but that's fine. We're doing a kind of a crop rotation thing. So last year this was courgettes, this year it'll be beans, next year beans will be on this plot and courgettes will be back over there. Kind of crop rotation. Anyway, these are going to go along the front here. Okay, going to be a little bit of a squeeze getting them in here, but it is only a dwarf variety, so it's not going to try to climb. It's going to produce little compact bushes with the beans just trailing off the top of them. So let's get those into place like that. And again, we'll give these a puddle in, just to settle the roots, or settle the soil around the roots, but they'll get a proper water this evening. There we go, beans all planted. And then the netting back on there just to keep the dog off. Eva would go on there and dig because she'd love to dig in this loose soil. Also, neighbours' cats would probably use it as a toilet. Somebody did mention in the comments cats could easily jump over this. Yeah, they could, but they just generally don't. It's enough of a deterrent to make them not bother. In other news, look at all the blossom on my calamondin or calamansi plant here. Loads and loads of blossom. So hopefully I'll get this to fruit this year. I mean, it had fruit when I bought it, but hopefully I'll actually manage to make it fruit again. There's also this, which is my capsicum flexuosum. It's doing okay. I think this one needs to be potted up and moved out to the greenhouse now because it's not really very happy on this windowsill. It's trying to reach towards the light. And I've also got, well, I've got another little aubergine coming up here, and I've got another one here, but all of the slots in the greenhouse are now full, so I will pot this up and we'll grow it in a pot. I might actually try growing this outdoors when the weather warms up fully. So this little aubergine, I'm only going to put it in this size pot. This won't be its final growing place because that's not big enough for a mature plant, but hopefully it will occupy that pot, and then I'm going to try planting it out in the vegetable patch when it's big enough and when it's warm enough outside. So a bit of compost in the bottom of that pot there. I don't need to take it out of this fibre pot because that's just going to nestle straight in there and the roots will grow straight through it. So we'll just put that in there like that. A bit more compost around the sides. And firm it down because it's important that the roots make proper contact with the rest of the compost in the pot. Not too much, and it's gone over the top of the plant. So there we go. That'll do. And then we'll give that a nice water, and then I'll just label that so I won't forget what that is. And then I think this is probably the last of the chard plants that's going to come up in these little pots. So let's go and get that one in its final place upstairs. So this is the patch where the chard is being planted. So you can see the ones I planted earlier are really taking off now. The ones I've planted more recently still got a bit of growing in to do, but they'll catch up. And then those are the ones I planted really recently over that side. So yeah, these have only just literally gone in the last couple of days. So I think there's room for one more little plant just there. Like that. Just firm it in. And hopefully we'll have a proper little clump, or almost like a triple row of chard plants here. Now the really interesting thing with these chard plants is this is a variety called Bright Lights, and it has all different coloured stems: yellow, pink, orange, red, white, kind of peachy colour, all sorts of colours on the stems. But when they're seedlings, they're always red to start with, and then they develop their different colours when they get a bit older. So yeah, we'll just give that new one a really nice water in around it, and we'll just make sure that the roots are in proper contact with the soil. Today for lunch I'm going to make some stuffed peppers. I've got these green peppers. I don't know if these are padron peppers or something like it anyway. So I've got the green peppers. I've got this Turkish cheese called tulum, which is a kind of goat cheese. And we're just going to make some nice stuffing for these peppers. So we'll cut them lengthways in half. Something like that. I'm just going to scrape the seeds out onto this lid just because that's handy. So we'll take out the core, the pith in the middle there, and the seeds. These peppers, they're sometimes a tiny little bit spicy. Sometimes you can find them and they've got a little bit of chili heat to them, but I had some of these the other day and they're not, they're just green peppers. It depends on the variety, I think. Right, that's the seeds out. Let's just get rid of that. I'm just going to put them on this metal dish. That's about right. I'll set that aside. Now I've got some breadcrumbs. These have been in the freezer actually, but just left over when I have like a end slice of bread that I know I'm not going to use. I blend it up, just put it in the box in the freezer. We've got a cayenne type red chili, kind of a medium heat. So I'm just going to cut that into nice little pieces. That will go into there. So we're making peppers stuffed with peppers. I've got these gorgeous little cherry tomatoes. Just gonna have a little taste. Very good. That's probably enough actually, so I'm just going to eat that one now. And then this cheese. Imported to the UK by Lidl, Great Britain. Yeah, I bought this in Lidl. So, interesting can. This is stuff in a weird can. The can is shaped a bit like a barrel. It's got kind of, yeah, got hoops on it and obviously meant to look a bit like a barrel. It is a pull tab can, but of course I'm using a can opener, as is my preference. Wow, I didn't expect that to be a solid block. I thought that was going to be cubes of it or something. So this is a goat's cheese that's traditionally stored in brine. I think it's called Nomad's cheese. Obviously cheese is generally a thing for preservation anyway, but so this would have been made from goat's milk, high fat goat's milk I think, and then stored inside a sheep's or goat's stomach in brine. That's probably about enough of that. Let's have a little taste of this cheese on its own actually. Quite salty. So I shan't be adding any salt to this mixture. And it's got this plastic lid, so that can just go back in the fridge. I think we'll have some sage, some dried sage, not that much. A little pinch of dried sage. Similar little pinch of oregano. And then mix that all up. So, yeah, so this cheese, salty, not particularly goaty. Just a creamy, mild, but quite salty white cheese. I'm going to push those together while I just stuff them, because I'm just going to pile this on top of all of them just to make sure that it goes into the right places. So rather than individually stuffing the peppers, I'm just laying the stuff across the top of all of them. The idea is it will settle into the peppers as it's heated. So this is going to go under the grill now for maybe 10 minutes, just to wilt those peppers a little bit and then melt all of this filling down inside of them. Actually, while that grill is just warming up, I'm just going to crumble a bit more of this cheese on top of the peppers to kind of protect the breadcrumbs from getting too burnt, but also, you know, if you can have more cheese, why wouldn't you? Okay, I think that might be enough cheese. Okay, how about that then? So I'll get that onto the plate first, and then Now that it is cooked, I can separate it into separate fillings, one for each pepper, something like that. That's going to need a moment, because at the moment, cheesy napalm. Now these peppers are only lightly cooked here, so they will still be quite crisp. So if you wanted the peppers to be really well cooked, you could probably start this in like the cast iron skillet and then transfer it into the oven just to brown the top. But I quite like the peppers just warmed and slightly wilted to still have a bit of crunch. Anyway, are we cool enough to give this a try yet? Let's go for this one. Yeah, so the pepper's wrinkled a little bit, but it's not collapsing. Anyway, here goes. And that cheese has softened a lot. Flavour of the cheese is similar to like halloumi or feta or one of those salty white Mediterranean cheeses. But it's a lot creamier. And that cayenne pepper doesn't appear to have been particularly hot. I can taste a little bit of spice. Just pleasantly warm. I think I'll go and eat the rest of this in a more civilised setting. Today we've decided to pay a visit to the Dorset Spring Show.
Remember there's shows and stuff going on, so
in your memory.
You can't reach. Now, this young lady here, her fleece has got a great shine about it, or what we know in the trade has a great luster about it. It's also got quite a nice little curl. Some of you ladies pay a fortune for that in hairdressers, when you. But she's got one other thing. Now, we've talked about fleece and wool. We've talked about meat. What's the other thing that she can give us? And if anybody here says companionship, I'm out of here. What else can they give us? Meat? Oh, milk! God, we don't talk about that here. Not loudly. Milk! Exactly! Big round of applause for her! Well done! Milk! But did you know there's actually more sheep milked in this world than there are cows? That's because it's good for us. All the way from up there on the Highlands of Scotland. Ladies and gents, let's have a big round of applause for Dougal, the Scotch blackface. Here he comes. Now this guy here, I got to be a bit careful with Dougal. He doesn't like me very much. Got a tendency to try and give me a Glasgow kiss. He will be born on the hill. Now we have another romance because our Belinda here, she went up to Scotland on holiday. Saw Dougal and she went What she's done is she's...
I hope you don't mind me videoing you, do you?
no, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
She will actually rear 1, 2, maybe even 3 babies.
I've done that with the potato onion.
Right, yes. Long time ago, never a child.
So sometimes we're just really
This guy here, he reminds me of Bob Marley.
There's mainly
Now, 734 sheep in a 9-hour day. And that was held by people down
Those must be newborn, mustn't they?
can't be very old.
They don't look, yeah.
Yeah,
frames with maybe a couple of thousand bees on each frame, and you're looking through them, and are you comfortable doing that? And So that was really smart on their part.
No problem.
And then you can get your handstands and come back.
What we're going to do first of all is we're going to try and take the belly wool off of this sheet. Now bear in mind that this sheet, like I say, has been lying on this belly wool for the last 12 months of her life. So it's going to be covered in things like poo, mud, grass, and all things like that.
Oh, cider. We might have to have a look at that.
Okay, so like I say, we're going to start off with one of the eagles we have within our collection. He is one of the smaller eagles we have within our collection. His name is called Achilles. Achilles here is a tawny eagle. He is a species found all the way out in Africa. You find him in the central, throughout the southern parts of Africa. We do have a larger eagle for you today. We're going to attempt to fly that a bit later on. It's the UK's largest eagle, which is the white-tailed sea eagle. If you do come and see us after this display, and you look on our stand, and you look at those two eagles next to each other, you'll see that it is a lot bigger than Achilles. But I don't want you to be fooled by Achilles because of its size, because this eagle here is the most aggressive eagle for their size. What they lack in height, this bird most certainly does make up for in aggression. This bird here, out in the wild in Africa where he lives, is a massive, massive bully. Supposed to stay on the floor and not fly like this. But we're going to keep it nice and simple here today. No excuse. Yes, unfortunately old world vultures, they don't have to get Asian. 80% of the old world vultures today are either endangered or seriously endangered. This is a massive, massive problem, and that's because of what this bird feeds on. This is a bird that feeds on carrion, so they only feed on things that are already dead, so they don't hold any power in their feet. So with it being
You look good. So we are, this is Cern Abbas Brewery.
You like that, do you?
I'm just about to try the coconut and rum stout
Those
Gert.
ones are a bit more expensive than £5 market, though. All the others are £3.
Oh, I do like that.
You can mix it up how you like. You can even do a mixed taste, all the same bottle if you want. Otherwise, you just have a pint if you want.
So I think I need to get one of these for the fridge. Cern Giant fridge magnet.
Gentlemen of a certain age,
We're going to have one of them, and I think I will have a bottle of the Gert.
Gert stout to that.
garlic breakfast traditional, lamb, garlic and rosemary.
Okay, vintage cheddar. Is it? Yeah.
Vintage
So-
farmhouse cheddar,
3 years old, you say?
3-year-old cheddar, and then we've got a stronger one, which is a 4-year-old cheddar.
Oh, yes.
And it's got more of an acidic taste, so it's almost like a blue cheese.
That's surprisingly creamy, isn't it?
That's the best selling. That is my favourite. Try this one.
Wow, a big piece as well.
I'd have a smaller piece. Just in case. Do you like strong cheese?
Oh man, that's good.
This one's strong but creamy, so it's not to be feared. This is a best seller. Yeah, I'll have a small bit.
That is so powerful. And yeah, depth of flavour on that one.
Stays with you, that one. Yeah. Keeps going. It's too strong for me. I prefer that.
Yeah, that's too strong for me. Yeah.
But then I'm not a blue cheese lover either.
No, I'm not.
Oh, we'll say hello.
Some of the pitfalls are the scent handler. Stand still too long. We need to keep moving around the search area so the dog has enough.
Here we go. What? Get a nice balance. Hey. So the goats are coming to me for a bit of protection here. That's the reason that all these animals stay together. They hunt for protection. So what we'll do is we'll see if we can bring over here. And we've got that's again a little bit keen. We'll get 50%. Give it a round of
And for his introduction jump, hitting the boost button.
So I've given up on cats on.
Just on the microphone, but he's keen there in the field. Number 11 there in third, but the piebald. Number 4 coming up in 4th position, and Gray there tailing the field.
Crowd, it's really simple. If they can get up and over this bar, let's give them a clap, a round of applause. If they knock it off, please feel free to boo. Right. Come on, you superstar. Right, is he over it? Let's give him a big old round of applause if he clears it. Pretty decent. He was coming in there for an Egypt. Just one confused kid. Who owns that kid? That's very brave, sir. Well done. And if you want us to do 2 notches, please make some noise. Stuck to your guns, madam, I like it. And if you want us to go all the way to the top, 3 notches, please make some noise.
Come on!
And it wasn't loud enough. 3 notches it is. Right then, George, take it away. Are we going to see some magic here? He's going pretty fast.
Yes!
Applause, please. Right, Jack Tones. You've seen it's possible. Let's keep those hands clapping. Let's give the tone staff some noise as well. The speed's pretty good. He's going to take it for sure. Right, Jack Hobson. Is he going to let the side down? Is he feeling sore from crashing? Not at all. Give him a round of applause, please. Drink responsibly, young lady. Drink responsibly. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we need to win any goodies. Please don't go home crying. Come on over. The Action at Sports Team 10. We've got 3 posters. Let's go ahead for it. 3 posters.
You ready for the So they're about 1,000 degrees at this point, and when he puts them in, assortments are going to ignite them at temperature. He's going to put them straight down, and that will start it, and then he's going to flip them upside down.
The bottom of our arena, the pottery show coming up. Do not miss it.
Now I feel I've got to take some time.
Now don't drop the big one.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's obviously ignited lot. So he's just trying to turn that over again. So he wants it to be face down. So inside the pot it's lacking oxygen basically. And that's what's going to change it and make it all metallic and lots of beautiful colours. Now we add extra sprinkles.
Why do we add extra sprinkles?
I don't know, you tell me!
So I'm putting them on the bottom of the pots to try to get the pots to go black.
I'm just a sidekick. You're good. What are you talking about?
Awful minute then, I thought you said a psychic.
Oh yeah, that too.
You've seen it 1,000 times, you know
what colour is it going to go?
It's exactly that.
Yes, just a few ideas.
So I'm now going to seal them up. The smoke that comes off of this from now on, and I'm going to step back out the wind.
You probably want to come just slightly round this way. So
Probably very sensitive because the smoke that comes off this is carbon monoxide.
Right.
It's not very nice.
Probably don't want that.
It does disperse quite quickly in the air, but it's not one that you want to breathe in.
On the wind direction. And it takes the oxygen from it and leaves copper, so you get these lovely blingy, coppery colours. You can come and have a look more over here in a minute. And that's what we're hoping for, basically, with these. You'll also get the crackles from the outside. When you do a firing like this, taking it to 1,000 degrees in about an hour, and then taking it out really fast is really stressful for a pot. So it's going to crack, and those cracks actually go all the way through the glaze and slightly into the pot. And you'll get that black colouring.
Is that one of the ones you did today?
These are the two that have just been bought, but
Yeah,
they were the two that came out of this last firing.
Wow.
Yes.
That is pretty.
And you can see why they just go.
Absolutely.
The horses are really just taking it in their stride. As I say, this is all quite alien to them. We normally spend our time alone, really. I spend my life pretty much looking at the back end of a horse all day, so it is quite nice to actually see people.
They said that nonsense 3 tips was really easy. I'm going to take some pictures tomorrow
Yeah, good boy.
So yesterday we had a little sparrow that kept landing on the window ledges, and especially up the top, and especially like up here, and he was just perching on this window ledge all the time. Little male sparrow. It's a problem because, for one thing, he's pooped all down the window, and that's not great. But also he was just sat here all day, not eating, not socialising with other birds. So yeah, I don't know if that was a display of aggression, because it was a young male, so he might have been trying to fight his reflection. It might be that he was expecting his reflection to feed him, because birds do have parental care, so it might be that he was expecting the other bird, which was just his reflection, to feed him. Or it might be that he was trying to mate with his reflection. None of that's good, because it was just a reflection, but also he was at risk of flying into the window and hurt himself, so we had to do something about it. So anyway, to manage that, I printed these, and I just stuck them on the windows, and it's moved him along. So hopefully, oh look, blue flowers. So hopefully, anyway, he's out there being a bird now. Going to do a little bit of batch cooking today. Going to make a couple of big pizzas. So this is my dough, and it's got lots of seeds and wholemeal in it. Now I happen to like that in bread in general, but also in pizza crust. It might not be to everybody's taste, but I like it. This was about 600 grams of flour in total, with about 420 grams of water and a teaspoonful of yeast and a bit of oil and salt. And that's been proving for about an hour now, and it's quite jiggly. And I'm not going to be able to knead this by hand because I think it's going to be quite sticky. So my plan is just to knock it back like this. I gave it a good knead with the dough hooks on the hand mixer. You can see there's good gluten development there. It's nice and stretchy. Now it's probably going to need a fair bit of flour to stop it sticking to my hands and to the surface. Because of the high hydration, it's a sticky dough. But I don't want to add so much flour to it that I turn it back into a low hydration dough. So I'm not going to try and work flour into this. Just going to use enough flour to stop it getting stuck all over me. Yeah, I'm not actually even going to really do very much to it. Just going to divide that in half and it's going to get spread out on these trays. Good glug of olive oil. Spread that around. And then that dough just straight onto there. And all I'm going to do is just push that out as far as it will go. Keep pushing it out. Then I'm going to let that rest and I'll do the other one. Okay. So, again, I'll just put a bit of flour on my fingers and press this out. And I'm trying to, I was hoping this would spread all the way out to the edges. Okay, we'll just get the other one back now. And we'll spread that out a bit more. Okay, then I'll set that aside, swap it over to the other one. And all that's happening here is that this dough is just getting a little chance to rest and relax in between each of these sessions. Well, it didn't look like that dough was going to go all the way to the edges, but it almost has. So one more try, one more round, and we should be there. Yeah, it really didn't look like that was going to happen at the start. And yet here we are. Now, it's going to be quite a thin crust at the moment, but it's a high hydration, so it will bubble up. And hopefully be quite a light, bready crust. Here we go though. It's completely covered that. Working the dough from the thicker spots towards the corners where it needs a bit more coverage. Just kind of moving it around. Dough smithing. Right, anyway, there we go. So those two are going to go set aside and prove for probably half an hour just to puff up a bit. For my sauce for these pizzas, I've just got a bit of fresh basil. I'm going to chop that up. Now, if I was not cooking this, if I was just going to throw this on at the last minute as a garnish, I wouldn't chop it like this, because chopping it, you can see it's bruising the leaves and making them go dark green. But since this is going in a sauce, I want to chop it as finely as possible to get the flavour out of it. That all goes in there. Tin of chopped tomatoes. This is a thing I discovered when we were moving house. A bit of gochujang in there. This is made from fermented chilies. And we'll have like a big teaspoonful of gochujang in there. It has got some chili heat to it. It's not massively hot, but it is deeply savoury. So that'll add some lovely flavour. Oregano, about a teaspoonful. Garlic powder, about a teaspoonful. And that's it. So I'm not going to cook that down. I mean, obviously those tomatoes have already been cooked in the canning process. So that's it. That's the sauce. I like quite a lot of onions on my pizza, but today we're going to try spring onions. And do you know what I'm going to do, actually? Everybody always says, replant the bases of your spring onions. So I think we'll try that today. We'll go and stick these in the garden, but I'm not going to waste too much of these spring onions. So I think we'll only go for like that much. You know, because if you cut off any more of that to try and regrow it, you're wasting such a lot of the onion anyway. Just cut those, the base, the stalks lengthways, so we get a good shot on them. Lovely. We are going to have a variety of toppings on this pizza. So one thing that's really nice is spinach and cheese. So I've got a couple of handfuls of fresh spinach, rinsed and mostly drained. And then I've got about half of this tin, no, it's about a third of this tin of tulum. This is this Turkish salty white cheese. Now it's a lot of cheese, but we're making two quite large pizzas here. This will probably cover maybe 2/3 of one of them. So that was a 440 gram tin, and I've used about a third of it there. So that's this amount that's on the screen. Spinach, cheese, nutmeg. This is my nutmeg grinder. Good, generous grind of fresh nutmeg. That's probably like about, I don't know, half a teaspoonful of freshly ground nutmeg. Right. That can just stay in there till we're ready for it. And then just one more thing that's worth getting ready in advance. Ham. A pack of ham trimmings, 400 grams of smoked ham trimmings. This is all the misshapen and ugly bits that they couldn't put in nice neat packs. This was £1.99 reduced. And since it is reduced, it's close to its date, so we're going to use the whole of this on these two big pizzas. And I am just going to hack this up into chunks like that. So this ham, yeah, like I say, it is the ham when they've got whole hams and they're slicing them in the factory. Obviously not all of those slices, especially near the end of the ham, not all of those slices are going to come off in lovely neat pieces. And since a lot of the packs of ham for sale are lovely neat identical slices, you can't put this lot in there. So all of the misshapes, all of the ends, all of the odd bits and pieces get packaged up and sold off cheap, and it's great, perfect for this kind of use. So my two pizza bases, I'm going to get a little bit of a coating of sauce. Let's see how far that goes. Just move it around. Obviously I don't want to saturate it to the point that the crust won't bake. I think that's probably about enough. Although we might put a few little blobs of sauce on top of the cheese when the pizza's all assembled. Kind of a bit like Detroit style pizza, but this is not Detroit style pizza, this is atomic shrimp style pizza. Yeah, that seems about right. Let's season that now, but I'm going to season it with cheese. This is just this is Grana Padano, Italian hard cheese, and I'll just go just a little sprinkle across the top of the tomato. Will just help to add a nice savoury base. Onions, my spring onions. Well, I think I might just do them on one pizza actually. We'll do a really oniony pizza, and then we'll do a not so. I'm going to have a little bit on this one. On this one with fewer onions, I've got some mushrooms which I've cooked using the kind of fry method. So you start them off frying in a little bit of oil, then you put some water over the top. Not enough water to cover them, but just let them simmer in that water. Let the water reduce away, and then back to frying. And you get such a lot of mushroom flavour with these when you do it this way. I think we'll have all of the mushrooms on this one. Something like that. Ham. And we've got enough ham here for both. But I think ham and mushroom on this side, mostly. And a little bit of ham, but not so much on this side. Just so we've got two slightly different pizzas. These are all for me, by the way. Jenny's going away to look after her mum for a few days. So I'm doing some bulk catering so that I don't have to cook all the time. Right then, cheese. This one on the left is going to get some cheese. This is not nearly enough cheese. And this is just a medium cheddar. I know that so-called authentic pizza needs mozzarella. Hate me for it if you wish, but I quite like cheddar on pizza. Now this one over this side is going to get this spinach and cheese mixture, and I'm not going to quenelle it or anything fancy like that, but I am just going to use 2 spoons to try to distribute it with some sort of evenness across the dish. So I'm hoping that when this cooks, this will kind of melt and spread a bit, and we'll end up with big kind of melty blobs of cheesy spinach mixture. Right, I was going to say we need a teaspoon to get that out of there, but I've got a better idea. How about an LGB teaspoon? This is a silicone, or I don't know, it might be just rubber spoon. Very, very useful for getting the last bits of stuff out of vessels. That does need some more cheese on it itself. So I'm going to grate some more cheddar and just put it around those other bits. One last thing, I think, is going to be some green olives. So I'll slice up some of these and put them on the ham and mushroom one, or the one that's predominantly ham and mushroom. Not too much, because the ham is quite salty. We don't want to make this a really, really salty pizza. And I think we'll just have a few little blobs of this sauce on the top here. Really just to use it up. So that and that now need to go in the oven. Those look about right. Now that this is completely cooled down, I'm just going to use scissors to cut this up into portions. So, underneath, yep, the base of the thing is nicely baked. I'm just going to pack this into here. A little bit of a squeeze, but that'll just go in the freezer like that. These two pieces I'll save. So the other one was a bit thinner, so that's gone in the box more easily. This spinach, cheese and nutmeg, just such a lovely combination. Now normally I don't hold very much stock in this whole thing about regrowing your vegetables, you know, life hack stuff. It's mostly nonsense or lies. However, onions are a bit different. Onions are a perennial plant, so these don't want to just grow and set seed. These want to survive and continue growing because they're a bulb. And the other thing with onions is the whole of the plant is here, whereas a lot of other plants have got a stem. So they've got a root, a stem, they've got leaves. The onion, the stem of the plant, is compressed down into this disc-shaped basal plate. So the whole of the plant is here, and it will regrow from this basal plate. Whether it will regrow into anything that's fit for the table is another question. I suspect these will just produce sprouts. They might split. I mean, the other thing we can do as well, because this basal plate is the whole plant here, we can actually cut this in half. So if we cut it right down the middle there and cut the basal plate in half like that, in fact you can see the basal plate in there, that's it there, we should be able to plant these as halves, and they should still survive, because that's still, although that's half of what it was, it is still a complete plant because it's got all of the necessary structures. So we'll try a couple like that. They may not do so well because they, having been injured like this anyway, well, I've cut the tops off them anyway, but having been cut in half like that, they may be slightly more prone to rotting. But we shall see. So I'll plant these 6, well it was 5, but I cut one in half. So we've now got 6 little plants. I'll get them some water. The other thing that may not help them much is that these have been in and out of the fridge in the supermarket and at home. So these have been in refrigeration and then out again. So they might not be all that happy because of that. But anyway, there we go. Give them a good bit of water just to settle them in. Wash off the tops. And I think just to protect them a little bit to start with, I'll cover them up with that. And we'll come back and have a look at these over the next few weeks. and see how they're doing. That'll probably be in a later video. Time for the comment positivity section, where I'm just going to pick out a handful of comments that I found interesting or uplifting or asked interesting questions. This is kind of like the opposite of reacting to hater comments. A question on the bittercress video. Bittercress being a weed that I've got growing in my garden. Is it an annual plant, or are you eating the second year's growth from a biennial? Although cabbage is annual, the plants in the family, such as garlic mustard, are biennial. So yeah, bittercress, it is in the cabbage family. There are a lot of biennials in that family, actually, that and the carrot family, where biennial in the sense that in the first year they grow lots of leaves, they store some food in the roots, and then the next year, early in spring, they flower and produce seed. And then usually with a true biennial, the plant dies. The parent plant dies because it's fulfilled its purpose, it's created seeds. Bittercress is annual to biennial. It can do either. So typically plants that germinate from seed early in the spring will set seed that year. They grow really fast, they'll produce flowers and seed, and they'll set seed really quickly. But there'll be several generations in one year. And so as those seeds will then germinate quite quickly, produce more plants which will flower and set seed. That will go on through the year, but as the seasons end, the seeds that are falling in autumn might germinate and grow a little rosette of leaves, and that plant will stand through the winter. And then in spring, it'll flower really early and produce seeds. But yeah, the plant is just really a short-lived annual plant, but it's capable of surviving the winter and delaying flowering. So it grows in one year and flowers in the next. So that technically, I suppose, a biennial, but only just because the cold weather happened to interrupt the breeding cycle. This one's on the thing where I cut the sandwich with what I call the underpants cut, which is 3 cuts to make 3 weirdly triangular sandwiches. Your sandwich looked like a peace sign. Have a lovely week. Thank you, and you too. Hi Shrimp. Many tiny ammonites can be found in the pyrite sands on the far beach part you ventured to. So this is on the Seatown and Beyond beach video. So apparently lots of tiny ammonites in the pyrite sands on the far beach. That sounds like I've got to go back there and have a look then sometime. I haven't done a beach video for a little while, so yeah, we'll be back there and have a look for some of these tiny ammonites. I can't remember which video this was on, but it says, I particularly appreciate the detail of that song choice. So here's the thing, you may not have noticed, if the video has a theme, for example toast or gold or something, I will usually try to pick an outro song that is thematically consistent with the stuff that's happened in the video, if I can find one. I am picking from the YouTube library, so not always possible to find a song that fits the thing that happened in the video, and especially in the right genre, because I tend to pick things like jazz and folk and country and something that's, you know, fair, not too aggressive sounding. But yeah, so the outro music in my videos, I try to find something that matches the notion of what happened in the video. This is on a budget video where I did some foraging. If you can get fresh sorrel, I highly recommend Polish sorrel soup. It's delicious. I will try that. I'll go and pick some sorrel sometime fairly soon. It's still in season, so I'll go and forage some sorrel. I'll find a recipe for Polish sorrel soup. I'll give it a try. Next one, you really don't need to keep reminding us that it's spelt flower. We all know how to spell flower. I'll show myself out. Dad joke, yeah, I've done that one. Embarrass my kids in the supermarket, point at a bag of spelt flour, which is a flour made from a grain called spelt, and it says spelt flour on the bag, and embarrass whoever's with you by pointing at it and saying, I know how to spell flour. I do appreciate a dad joke. This is a thing on my most recent budget video where I explained that I take a shopping trolley because one of my hands is occupied carrying a camera. And also sometimes I just do additional shopping that isn't part of the budget shopping while I'm going to the shop. Since I've got to drive there to do the thing, I might as well do some actual shopping that we need while I'm there. So the reason that I take a trolley, but actually really good point here, but also why not take a trolley? Even if you're only getting a few things, why carry a basket? And I think that's a really good point. There is nothing virtuous about lugging round a basket and defying gravity as you walk around the supermarket. The trolley is there to take the strain off you. Why not take advantage of it? I do laugh sometimes walking around the supermarket because I do like a bit of people watching. And there's a thing I see quite consistently, which is people who've gone in, and I think they must have gone in thinking, I only want one thing. And then they might have seen some other, oh no, I ought to get some milk while I'm here as well. We need bread as well. And you see them and they're approaching the checkout with this armful of stuff. They haven't taken a basket because they only went in for one thing. And they've got this armful of stuff, a packet of biscuits perched on the top, some pots of yogurt, packet of crisps, 4-pack of beer. It's all getting a bit too much to carry. And usually by the time they get to the checkout, like a thing falls off. And as they stoop down to try and pick the thing up and put it back on top of the stack, another thing falls off the other side. So yeah, I just take a trolley because often when I go into a supermarket, I don't know how much I'm going to buy. I do go shopping with a list sometimes, especially if Jenny sent me out shopping. But very often with shopping, I'm wandering around the shop and deciding what looks nice. So I don't know how much I'm going to get when I go in. And I have found often that if I take a basket in, sometimes this will happen actually if it's the two of us, I'll say to Jenny, do we need a trolley? And she's saying, no, just get a basket. And so I get a basket and I'm carrying around this basket, and then Jenny puts in like 1.5 kilo bag of potatoes, and then 2 bottles of washing conditioner and washing liquid, and a big pot of yogurt or something like that. And by the time we get to the checkout, this thing's almost like the handles are bending and it's almost wrenching my arm off. So I tend to take a trolley because it's somewhere to dump your shopping bags, and it, like I say, just takes the strain off. Why wouldn't you? This one's on a point I made in a scam awareness video. And I did moan a bit towards the end of the video to say, I really don't like it when people say this thing about if people fell for that scam, they deserve to lose their money. Because it is such a flex. And it's just people actually saying, look at me, I thought this was really obvious. But anyway, let me read the comment. If they fell for it, they deserve to be scammed is crazy to me. So if you get kidnapped, you deserve it because you weren't careful enough. It's just nuts. Yeah, sometimes people can be a little naive, or sometimes they literally just weren't paying attention. Got a bit too excited at the thought of something, didn't stop to think if it was even possible. It doesn't make what the scammer did any less morally corrupt and illegal. YouTube should be facing some massive fines for allowing their ads to gain so much traction to the point that we're all getting them. Not only that, but they allow influencers to promote very obvious scams as well. This website's clearly not on our side. And yeah, I do think people fall victim to scams for any number of reasons. And some of those reasons sometimes do include fault, personal fault, negligence on the part of the victim. But nobody's perfect. And we all make mistakes. We all have faults. We're all doing faulty things some of the time. Nobody is perfect. And if anybody tries to tell you they are, then that's the mistake they're making today. But I think what kind of really irks me the most is about people who are proud of the fact that they have no sympathy or no empathy for scam victims. And quite often it is phrased exactly like that. I have no sympathy for people who fall for this scam. They deserve to be scammed. They deserve to lose their money. Really, is that something to be proud of, that you have no sympathy? Is that a thing that you should be shouting at other people on the internet and say, look at me, everyone, I have no empathy? It's just disappointing every time I see it, really, because I often think, what if, and maybe this is a principle I should apply more to myself as well, what if your last words were engraved on your headstone? So what if at any point in your life you might suddenly drop dead and the last thing you said will be engraved on your headstone above your grave, and that's what people will remember you by? So do you really want I have no sympathy engraved on your headstone? Do you want people to remember you for that? maybe, and maybe I need to turn this idea on myself here, maybe I need to think more about the things I say, the things I write. Do I say or write things that I wouldn't want to be remembered as my last words? Interesting thought. But yeah, it's just so toxic, this whole I don't have sympathy for people who fell victim for a scam, because I happen to think that scam's obvious, and hey, look at me, look at how clever I am because I can flex on how obvious that scam was to me. It's not a thing to be proud of, that you have no sympathy for victims of crime. Anyway, onwards. This is a question about foraging where I had sorrel and wild arum next to each other. So sorrel edible, wild arum toxic, in close proximity. So somebody asked, is it okay to eat the sorrel next to the arum, or do the plants breed when touching and it's mixed, or touching poisonous bits? And then they said, oh, that makes me sound silly. So no, that's not a silly question. That's actually a perfectly reasonable question. Do plants growing next to each other contaminate each other in some way? And I don't think that's an unreasonable question to ask, especially if you're foraging things and you know that toxic plants are growing next to non-toxic ones. I would say generally there is no cross-contamination. Plants don't share tissues, they don't share their equivalent of circulatory systems. The exception would obviously be things like mistletoe that grows on other plants, and so it does bond with the other plants. But generally speaking, I think it's true that there isn't any cross-contamination between plants that are merely growing close together. Now I'm just trying to think, actually, I've picked wild strawberries from growing in a patch of densely growing wild garlic. Now if anything was going to cross-contaminate and be noticeable, I would have thought it'd be that case. So the roots of the wild strawberry are definitely in the same soil as the roots of the wild garlic, and the wild garlic was a carpet of the stuff, but had actually died down by the time that did the lights just change colour? Had died down by the time that the strawberries were fruiting. But I ate those wild strawberry fruits, and I think I'd have noticed if they had any of the garlic aroma in them from the bulbs that were underground mixed in with the strawberry roots, and there was nothing. So I think it's generally the case that plants growing together, unless one of them is parasitic on the other, they don't intermingle their kind of juices and poisons. So the biggest risk is that you pick the wrong thing because it's growing next to the right thing, not that you pick the right thing but it's contaminated by the wrong thing. Next one was on one of my Spanish Dry Valley video. I can't remember whether it was the gold panning one or the ramble. Does this dry climate zone have venomous snakes or scorpions that one must watch out for on walks? Well, I believe it does. I believe there are snakes in that region, and there are a couple of quite dangerously venomous ones. I've never seen them when I've been out there, and I suspect that I don't think they're aggressive snakes. I mean, most snakes aren't aggressive anyway, but I think probably the reason I haven't seen them is that I'm stomping away up the gravel there, and the snake has probably heard me coming from quite a way off and has just retreated into some safe place to remove itself from the risk of me being an opponent to it. And so I suspect there are probably snakes there, and I think that probably the reason I haven't ever seen them is that they get out of my way when I'm coming, because that's what the majority of snake species would do. It would be a problem, I think, if I was to go and stick my hand into holes and things like that, or be turning over rocks, or perhaps even clambering over loosely packed rocks where there are little crevices and caves and things. I have seen scorpions there, but only when I've been turning over rocks looking for them. When we went there with the kids when they were younger, we did go out on a walk, and we said, okay, let's turn over some rocks and see what bugs and beasties we found underneath. And we did find a couple of scorpions. So they are there, but for the most part, again, the scorpions are just, they're not out there presenting a huge risk to somebody who's just walking there. This was on a budget video. We sometimes shop in Tesco, as I know that's where you are. The Growers Harvest tin peaches are lovely. We've been buying them for a few weeks, 35p a tin. I know the peaches would have been too much for your £1 on the day, but looking at the branded names and prices, these peaches are thumbs up. Well done, sir. Thank you. I haven't ever really looked at tinned fruit when we've been doing the budget challenges, so perhaps we should go back and do a challenge video where the challenge is make a cheap but luxurious dessert. That's an idea, isn't it? You know, make an impressive dinner party dessert on a budget. Also on the budget video is the allowances spelling mistake. I only put one L in it. In the rules, an inside joke now. I've seen it a couple of times. Good question. No, it's not. That was an error in my template. So in DaVinci Resolve, I use template objects, which are typically just the first time I set up a bit of text like that, I drag it into my power bin, and then I've got it to use again next time. I just drag it out and modify it, which unfortunately means if I make a typo in the first time I use it, when I create the template, it's there until I either notice or somebody else does and tells me. That one's now corrected. Thank you for letting me know. Also on budget videos, do you have bulk shops nearby? In my area of the US, we have Winco, which has a selection of bulk shelf-stable items sold by weight. I use them quite a lot for getting as much as I need of ingredients or spices I don't use frequently, or that might be cost prohibitive to get a package of, like nuts and dried fruits. So we do have sort of sell by weight. We have two varieties of that shop really here. There's one that is the kind of rationale for it is this is cheaper because you're buying it in bulk. And so you're shoveling things out of big bins and you're buying things, and notionally you're getting it cheaper because you're buying it loose in bulk. There's no individual packaging, and you're just taking as much as you want. You bring your own bags, or you use, I think sometimes they sell containers or bags there, but you're taking as much as you need, and you're notionally gaining an advantage of cheaper produce because it's been shipped to the store in big bags or big bins rather than individually wrapped packages. The other kind is the eco zero waste stores, and the notion there is that you're helping by not consuming single-use plastic. So you're buying lentils and things from a bin into your own packaging or into a paper bag or whatever, without consuming a plastic wrapper of a pre-weighed quantity of lentils. There are two slightly different flavours of the same shop. Loose shops, I think they're called here. I don't generally shop in them because my experience is that neither of them are cheaper than the supermarket. And so neither of them will be cheaper for, like if you go and buy 500 grams of red lentils in the supermarket, you'll pay less for them than if you buy 500 grams of lentils in a loose shop, generally. They still might have a place though in the budget videos because some of that is about getting variety for a small price. It's not so much about quantity, it's more about variety. And so taking a couple of quid into a loose shop and getting a handful of lentils and a pinch of this and a pinch of that, and small amounts of stuff that I can assemble a meal out of, it may not be necessarily a good value meal, but in terms of meeting the challenge where there was a financial limit, where there was a budget, and you had to make a meal, it might still be advantageous to pay a higher price per gram if you can buy smaller quantities and thus have more variety. So that might be a thing, and I'll have a look out for if there's any of those shops near me. I think I know of one in a town a little way over, but I'll have a look and see if there's any nearer to me. Maybe we'll do a budget challenge thing where I go into there with a couple of quid and say, okay, I need to make dinner for a couple of quid with stuff I can buy in this loose shop. Interesting idea. And then finally, lots and lots and lots of comments congratulating me and celebrating the 1 million subscriber milestone, which has now happened. Last time I was sat here talking about the 1 million subscriber milestone, it hadn't quite happened, and then suddenly it did. So we are now well past 1 million subscribers at the time of recording this, and I just want to thank everyone for subscribing, and it's just such an amazing and special thing really, and still can't quite get my head around the fact that there are 1 million people who decided it was interesting enough to watch this channel that they wanted to subscribe. It continues to amaze me, and thank you very much. And on that particular note, a parcel has arrived. And here it is. Let's get this open then. I mean, I know what's inside, but let's have a look at it. Well, there we go. Congratulations on your subscriber milestone. We are honoured to take part in recognising your achievement and want your experience to be exceptional. This award was inspected and packaged with great care by Rick. There's a pre-printed letter, doesn't actually mention the channel name, from Neil Mohan, YouTube CEO. Congratulations, you may have started with just a few viewers, but your voice, passion and creativity have now touched the lives of people around the world. And the community that you've built is enriched by the stories you've shared as you bring people together. It's nice of you to have noticed, but I'm sure that was all pre-written. Anyway, you know, I didn't expect individual attention anyway. There it is, presented to Atomic Shrimp for passing 1 million subscribers. Now, I think these awards have actually just changed quite recently. I think they reduced the size of the gold one. I think the gold one used to be a lot bigger than the silver one. I think they're both the same now. Let me go and get the silver. So there's the silver. Yeah, they are the same size. Not that size, you know, it's not about the size. So anyway, yeah, that's the thing that happened. It was interesting because the subscriber count, I was watching it when it went past 1 million. I just happened to be drinking my morning coffee when I saw it was on 999,999, and then I've got to refresh the page, and I refreshed the page and it was on 1 million, and there we go. And it did waver a little bit. Actually, it went up and it did go back down, and it went back down below 1 million for a short time, and then it went back up, and then everything's fine. It's not a good thing to be too obsessed by the numbers, but anyway, I'm very grateful, I should say, not for this plaque, but for what this plaque means. That this means that, you know, enough people seem to appreciate what I'm doing that they decided to subscribe. And as I said earlier, I'm continually dumbfounded by that. So there it is. Anyway, so this is going to have a place on my studio wall behind where you saw me sitting just now. I've got to find some hooks to put on the wall and we'll hang that up. There is going to be a different 1 million subscribers celebration video coming up. It's going to take a little bit of planning and doing, so that's coming in the next few weeks, but there is something special and individual and unique to celebrate the 1 million subscriber milestone for this channel. That's coming soon. But that's the end of this video, so thanks for watching and I hope to see you again soon.